Hello everybody, and welcome to this webinar on naturally reducing blood pressure with mindfulness. Let me start off by giving you an overview of what we're going to be covering. So we'll just move on to the next slide. And so we're going to look at how stress creates blood pressure, what the connections are between stress and blood pressure. We'll look at what mindfulness is, and then the connection between the two. How does mindfulness reduce blood pressure? And then I'll give you an experience of experiencing mindfulness for yourself, and we'll try applying it to a stressor and see what the results are, see what the effect is of that. Then I'll talk about next steps, and we'll conclude with some questions and answers. So let's go on to the next slide. So I'm going to hide myself now completely, and you can see this slide here. So this is about stress in the natural world, and this is to do with our history, our evolution, where we came from as a species. So when we were evolving, stressors looked like this. They looked like big saber-toothed tigers, real physical threats, real physical dangers to our well-being. And we evolved a fantastic mechanism for dealing with that. We spotted it's a threat, pretty obvious, I know. And then this tiny little part of the brain, the amygdala, fires up really, really quickly. It's a very, very fast part of the brain. And that has the result of triggering all the fight-flight systems of the brain. Fear arises, bodies put at action stations, and that creates lots of action, as you'd expect. Fight or flight. In this case, running seems like the best bet to get away from the saber-toothed tiger that's, let's face it, going to kill us if we don't get away from it. So the body's exquisitely designed to deal with this. It's got some emergency mechanisms. It creates lots of muscle tension, so the muscles are fully primed. The heart rate goes up, the blood pressure goes up, so all of the systems are fully oxygenated. Breathing becomes fast up in the chest. Long-term maintenance is set aside. What's the point in digesting food if you're going to be someone else's food? Immune system, that's not important right now. We've got more important things to do. And the mind, attention narrows, the brain switches onto an instinctive mode. Emotions of anger and fear, as I've said. And I'm sure you're seeing here, relevant to this webinar, blood pressure goes up. And that's absolutely perfect. In the short term, that's what's needed. But let's look at what happens today. So stress in the modern world often looks like this. So instead of it being some physical, real danger, you just have some abstract danger, revenue going down. Now that really is a threat, but it's a different sort of a threat. Someone says something unpleasant in a meeting. They're not about to kill you. They're not about to club you to death. So the threat response that we have, exactly the same mechanism gets triggered, but actually, in that meeting, running away is not the right answer. Fighting, punching is not the right answer. We need to respond, but not in quite that way. Now, if we just rely on evolution, look at what happens. The natural automatic responses there of the amygdala kicking in trigger that response to run away or to fight back. But we can't do that. And the threat's still there. So we end up with a chronic stress response. All of those same things that were good in an acute situation, if they're maintained for a long term, for hours, days, weeks, months, years, obviously do us harm. And again, let's focus in on the blood pressure. So what this means is that if we're chronically stressed, which is a natural thing to happen, then our blood pressure stays high. And that's where the problems come from here. So, what can we do about it? Well, let's look at mindfulness. It's interesting, I'm just noticing myself, as I've been talking about stress, I've got into quite a stressed state. So I bet if I was to measure my blood pressure right now, I'd find that my blood pressure would have gone up. Just talking about a threat like that. So yeah, let's look at mindfulness. Mindfulness is a training for the mind. It's a way of letting go of thoughts and emotions, particularly stressful thoughts and emotions. It's a way of focusing more naturally and easily, which helps us, as well as reducing stress, it helps us to be more focused and get more done. And it helps us create this attitude of non-judgmental curiosity. Indeed, non-judgmental curiosity is the attitude that helps us to let go of stressful thoughts and emotions. So, let's look at what the benefits are. These are all evidence-based benefits that there's good science, published papers behind all of these different benefits. So I won't go through all of them, but just so you can see the whole range of different things that mindfulness does for us. So that it's a very, very simple practice of letting go of these stressful thoughts and emotions. Something that I'll give you a chance to experience in a few minutes. But I just look at all the different things that come from it, all the different ways in which it transforms our experience. So if you're thinking, oh, well, maybe it's a bit of a chore, you know, I've got to reduce blood pressure, I've got to do this stuff. Well, actually, it's a great thing. It gives you all of these different benefits, you know, changing your emotion, your relationships, helping you be more focused, more motivated, improves memory, creativity, decision-making, leadership, all of these wonderful things. So how about the evidence, though, specifically with blood pressure? Well, here's a few studies, very quickly and easily, studies you can find on the internet. So we've got the first one here. It was for over 55s with hypertension or pre-hypertension. And there was a 30% decrease in cardiovascular mortality. I'm afraid that doesn't mean that you're not going to die. Unfortunately, not even mindfulness is that powerful. But what it means is that during the period of the experiment, the chances of people who had, you know, serious blood pressure problems were 30% less likely to die as a result during that period, due to blood pressure issues. Second study here, so these are people with pre-hypertension, you can see the figures there, and with mindfulness training there was a 4.8 millimeter reduction in pressure. I believe that's the systolic blood pressure reduction, although the diastolic also reduces to a similar amount. Now then, look at the second one, low-income African-American older adults. They're people who are particularly prone to blood pressure problems, and we've got a reduction here of 21.9. I won't read out all of these results here, but you know, it's very easy to see. There's plenty of evidence for blood pressure reduction coming about with mindfulness practice. And this is something that I've experienced myself in my own training with people who've come along for mindfulness training to reduce blood pressure, and it's worked for them. So Ben it's not his real name, this isn't his real photograph, but he is a real person, came on my training course. A multinational executive responsible for the jobs of hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of people. And he'd had high blood pressure for 10 years. He was in the habit of every night, in the middle of the night, he would wake up, well, he would shout out in the middle of the night. He would just shout, sit bolt upright, something stressful to do with work would come out of his mouth before he'd even woken up. I really don't know how his wife managed to handle it. She did somehow, and yeah, this was chronic. Every day he'd measure his blood pressure, and the measurement would consistently say, "Go and see a doctor." Now, it was under control due to medication, but that that control wasn't wasn't anything more than that. It wasn't coming down. So when he came along and did the mindfulness training, after 3 weeks of putting it into practice, what he found was that his blood pressure monitor, wasn't saying go and see a doctor. It wasn't even just saying you're normal. He was saying you're in really good shape. You're an athlete. So it had made that much difference to him. So that's an experience I've had of blood pressure really being transformed thanks to mindfulness practice. So let's look at starting to put this into practice ourselves. That's better. Let's think about actually giving this a go. So what I'd like you to do first of all for this is to choose an issue. So this is a particular stressful issue that's a live issue for you now, something that's difficult but not overwhelming, and something that's current. So what I mean by that is it's a stressor that will, when you bring it to mind now, you actually feel the tension, you feel the stress with it. When you've got something like that, if you could just say, just type yes into the chat, so that I know you're all ready to go with that. And while you're thinking of that, let's just go on to the next little bit of input, which will start us to be ready to actually do this practice. Actually, the very first thing I would like you to do is to take a sheet of paper. If you've had a chance to print out the handout that looks like this, that's brilliant. If not, if you've just got a regular sheet of paper, then just fold it in half and put it down on ready to write, and have it so that the fold is on the right hand side. Yeah, so that you're ready to write on the left hand side of the sheet of paper. This is the most complicated part of this whole exercise. Yeah, so that we will come back to that sheet of paper in a moment. But for now, what I'd like to show you is the cycle of meditation. So this is what we're going to be using. We're going to be doing a 10-minute meditation and seeing what the effect of that is on the stress. So how does this cycle of meditation work? Well, first of all, when we do some meditation, we start by choosing a focus. In this case, the focus is going to be the sensations in the body. Simple as that. And then we, unsurprisingly, we focus on it. We engage with that focus. Now, if you've ever tried meditation, mindfulness before, you'll know that what happens pretty soon after that is the mind starts to wander. And that's not a problem. That's just what minds do. Minds wander. And at some point, you'll notice that the mind has wandered. You'll realise the mind's wandered. And that's the crucial part of this. That's when it's all starting to really happen. When you realise that the mind has wandered, then just kindly and gently let go of whatever the mind's got caught up in and return to the focus, to the sensations of breathing, the sensations in the body. And you'll engage for a while, and then the mind will wander again. And so we just keep going around this circle. Sometimes people think that when the mind wanders, there's something gone wrong, but not at all. That's just what, as I say, that's just what minds do. The important thing is that when you realise the mind's wandered, first of all, that you have an appreciation that the realisation is a good thing, and then you kindly, gently return to the chosen focus. Simple as that. Let's come back to the stressor. Let's come back. Actually, that's not what I wanted. Let's come back to our sheet of paper and take your stressor and write on the top of the page, just write the title of the stressor, right? So, you know, if it's problem at work, write down problem at work, but it's best to make it as specific as possible. So it might be something more like worried about the meeting tomorrow, or angry with what someone said to me, what person X, you know, specific person said to me, whatever the specific thing is for you, just write that down. And then write down the first 5 thoughts that come into your head, whatever they are. Don't edit. Don't feel they have to be the right thoughts. Just write down the first 5 thoughts that come into your head in relation to this stressful issue. And there's absolutely no rush with this, but when you're done with that, if you'd like to just type done into the chat, that will let me know that we can start going on to the next thing. Or if you need more time, then just type need more time. Okay, so then if you write 3 or 4 words that describe your emotions now about this issue. And again, when you're ready, if you just type done into the chat, I'll know it's time to go on to the next thing. Okay, so when you've got those 3 or 4 words written down that describe your emotions, what we'll do now is a very simple 10-minute meditation. So put the paper aside, put the pen down, and make sure you're sitting comfortably. I'm aware that if you're in a different time zone, you might be very sleepy right now. Sometimes what happens is that we meditate, we end up falling asleep. If that happens, that's okay. It's just the way things go. That probably is a sign that you needed it. But what we're ideally aiming for in mindfulness practice is something, it's a state that's for sure is relaxed, but it's also a state that's alert and present with experience. In this case, present with experience in the body, especially sensations in the body. So I'm going to guide us in these 10 minutes through from the soles of the feet right up to the crown of the head, just taking in the sensations that are there. So you may well find that sitting upright is the best position for this, either in a chair, a straight back chair, or cushions on the floor, whatever suits you, whatever you feel most comfortable with. So let's start just by arriving here in this present moment, in this body, feeling the sensations of contact with the ground, with whatever we're sitting on, cushions, chair, whatever it is, and noticing the particular details of these sensations. Maybe there's a particular place where we feel the pressure more strongly, or at places. Maybe that contact with the ground is more solid there. And maybe just taking a couple of deep breaths and relaxing into this contact with the ground, allowing us to really be supported by it. And allowing the intention to particularly gather in the soles of the feet. Maybe you can, as well as the contact, maybe you can feel sensations of temperature, warmth or coolness. Different places, different parts of the feet, the toes, ankles. Lower legs. Noticing whatever sensations are here. Perhaps you've got soft sensations in the calf, maybe more hard sensations in the shin bones, or maybe you're feeling nothing at all in this area of the body, in which case that's perfectly fine. It's just a case of paying attention to the absence of sensation here. What's this like? And if thoughts or emotions arise in relation to this, then just allowing those thoughts and emotions to be there. But returning your attention in particular to the sensations in your legs. As we move up from the calf, lower leg, up through the knee to the upper leg. And into the sitting bones, the contact with whatever you're sitting on. And if at any time your mind wanders, remember that's just completely natural. It's what minds do. Our minds have been thinking all day, maybe thinking, in the habit of thinking for years and years. So that habit will just continue. It's just part of the natural functioning of the mind. So when you notice you've got caught up in some thoughts or emotions, just letting go of those, letting them be there. You don't have to push them away, just allowing them to be there. Kindly, gently, moving your attention back to the sensations of sitting here, the sensations of contact with the chair. In your sitting bones, buttocks, maybe lower back. In fact, yeah, let's take our attention to the lower back and the upper back, which may or may not be in contact with the chair. Maybe you can feel muscles there holding you up. Maybe there's tension. If there is tension, then that's just the way it is. As you breathe, perhaps it might want to let go, or perhaps not. The attitude here, as best you can, is just allowing your experience to be your experience. So as you bring your attention round to your belly now, into your chest, just being curious about what sensations you notice here. What sensations are present in this part of your body now? And how are these sensations changing? You might particularly notice them change as you breathe in and as you breathe out. And you could bring your attention up to your shoulders now. And if you imagine breathing into your shoulders, again, you might find that any tension here, it might relax if it wants to. If it doesn't want to, just allow it to be as it is. And guiding your awareness down through your arms, down to the tips of your fingers, noticing whatever there is to notice here. And coming to your head, crown of your head, just imagining a softness maybe spreading from the crown of your head all around through your scalp, forehead, face, ears, the back of your head, down to your neck and your throat. Being aware of whatever you can feel here in your face and head and throat. So that's 10 minutes, and it's time now to gradually, gently start to bring the meditation to a close. So first of all, we can do that by allowing our awareness of our body to expand. We've been exploring the body sensations in detail, but now, maybe as you breathe out, just having a sense of your body as a whole. And allowing your attention to take in sounds. Maybe there are sounds around you. Perhaps in the room. Perhaps outside the room. Perhaps they're obvious sounds, or maybe more subtle background sounds you've been tuning out. Don't worry what they are, what's causing them. Just listen to the sound. And in the same way, take your awareness to what you can see. Just allowing that to come to you. Taking in what's there in your field of vision. And again, not worrying what the things are that you can see, but more taking in just the shapes and colours, any movement. Noticing the patterns of light and dark. So, that's it. That's the meditation. Now what I'd like you to do is come back to the paper and turn it over. So you're writing on the other side, and we'll do the same thing again. So we'll write down the title of the stressful topic. So the same topic that you had before. Sometimes its name changes mysteriously, but write down its title now for the same topic. And once you've written the title down, write down the first 5 thoughts that come into your head, whatever they might be. And as before, there's absolutely no rush with this, but when you're ready, just type "ready" into the chat box so I know you're ready to carry on. Great, and once you've got the 5 thoughts, if you'd like to write down 3 or 4 words that describe your emotions now in relation to this. And once you've done that, if you'd like to open up the paper so you can see what you wrote before and after the meditation, and look to see if you notice any differences between what you wrote before the meditation about this stressful topic and what you wrote afterwards. And just, if there's anything you can easily say about the difference, just type it into the chat box. Great, so Julia's typed more emotional distance, so I'm guessing that that's something that's means the emotion isn't so pressing and demanding, and so much easier to have perspective on, much easier to relate to more positively. So that's the kind of thing that can happen with this. Let's carry on. I'm aware there's, as well as those of you watching this live, there will also be people on recording. So let me show you what the next steps are. So if you found this meditation helpful, if you found that it's helped you reduce stress in the moment, well, that's something that absolutely will continue. Sometimes one meditation can have a bit of effect, but the important thing is over a longer period it builds. So if you remember, I said earlier that mindfulness is about it's a training for the mind to become better and better at letting go of thoughts and emotions, creating distance from them, better and better at letting go in particular of stressful thoughts and emotions, so that they're not creating aggravated high blood pressure when there's no need for it, or any of those other signs of stress that we talked about. The other effects, of course, being that it helps us to be more focused on whatever we're doing, so we get more done. And the effect of that itself is that we're experiencing less stress because we're under less pressure to achieve things. And all of those other benefits that I showed earlier. So, if that's something you'd like to continue with, you'd like to get more of, let's have a look at how we can do that. So, lots of different ways. One thing you can do is there are various apps available. Headspace is one that I've heard lots of good recommendations for. I couldn't comment on others, but there are many, many apps out there. Something to bear in mind is that, you know, they're brilliant in that they're quite short, they're very portable, they're easily with you. If you're using an app, generally a lot of people find that they get going and they're enthusiastic, but they don't keep going in the long term and get the long-term benefits. So if you are going to try that route, it's a good idea to get some support, maybe do it with a friend or something, just to keep things going. Now that naturally happens if you do a course with other people. So an MBSR or MBCT course over 8 weeks is a very good way, an excellent way actually, of getting mindfulness. If you do one of those courses though, they will ask you to devote an hour a day for those 8 weeks. So you've really got to be clear that it's something you're absolutely committed to doing. I will say that the benefits that I described with the research, that was on that kind of practice of mindfulness. So, you know, we know that if you practice at that level, it really will make that kind of difference. The other thing that I can offer that I think has something of the best of both worlds, I call the Mindfulness Quick Start. So it's a way of reducing stress and boosting focus in 2 minutes a day. It's a 2-hour training course. There's 3 weeks of email follow-up, so you get the 2 hours of training and then you're in touch with me. You're getting a little email from me every day, and you can email me back and I can help you to put this brief mindfulness into practice. And you can see that there are the figures. 96% of people say it reduces stress to some extent. 69% say it gives them more enjoyment in life and work. 88% say it helps them to be more focused and effective. So it definitely does make a difference. I've got a course coming up. I haven't put the date on the slide. It's on the 6th of November, the same time as this workshop. And there's a 25% discount if you book by the 30th of October. The link is here on the slide, and I'll put it in the comment underneath the recording of the video. So that's basically it. Feel absolutely free at any time to email me any questions. That's my email address there. If you've got any questions you'd like me to answer now, please do type them into the chat. I see Malini, you've put into the chat that when you did the exercise, you've got less frustration about the stressor, which is very good to hear. I'm glad it's had that good effect for you. Again, that's the sort of thing that we'd expect mindfulness practice to bring us. It doesn't. Obviously, it can't change the external conditions just by sitting and paying attention to body sensations for 10 minutes, but it changes our relationship to what's going on out there, and that's what can make the difference to our blood pressure and all those other things I've been talking about. So that's it. Thank you very much indeed for coming along, and both live, participating in this webinar on reducing blood pressure naturally with mindfulness. Thanks also if you're watching the recording, and I hope you've got some good value from it, and enjoy the rest of your day, evening, night, wherever you happen to be. Okay, thank you very much indeed. That's the end. Goodbye.